Every single day, you carry it, often without noticing. The quiet pressure to look right, act right, be approved of. The subtle urge to measure your worth by the reactions of others. It seeps into how you speak, how you dress, even how you sit in a chair. And yet, what if you could simply set it down? What if the moment you stopped caring about what others think, everything in your life began to improve? Think about it. How many decisions in your life were made out of fear of judgment rather than genuine desire? How many times have you held back, not because you couldn't, but because you worried about how it might be perceived? This isn't about apathy. It's not about becoming careless or cold. In fact, it's the opposite. It's about reclaiming the energy you've been pouring into invisible battles you can win. It's about freeing yourself from the exhausting habit of overanalyzing every word and every move. By the end of this video, you'll see how letting go of that need for approval, that constant background noise, can change not just how you feel about yourself, but how others respond to you. You'll discover why the less you force life, the more it flows, and how a French philosopher from 500 years ago left us the blueprint for living this way. His name was Michel de Montaigne, and he understood something that most people today still don't. Once you stop caring about the wrong things, the right things have a way of falling perfectly into place. Michel de Montaigne lived in 16th century France, a time of political unrest, religious conflict, and constant uncertainty. But unlike many thinkers of his era, he didn't lock himself in a tower to escape the world. Instead, he studied it, and himself, with an honesty that was revolutionary. He was the inventor of what we now call the personal essay. Not academic arguments for the sake of winning debates, but deeply human reflections on fear, friendship, death, love, and the strange ways we sabotage our own peace of mind. What makes Montaigne so relatable, even 400 years later, is that he wrestled with the same struggles we do now. Sure, he didn't have to deal with Instagram likes or email notifications, but the pressure to fit in, to appear impressive, to prove your worth, that's as old as humanity itself. In his lifetime, status was measured by courtly approval, political alliances, and public reputation. Today, we have follower counts, performance reviews, and social clout. The surface has changed, but the weight feels the same. Montaigne questioned why we let other people's opinions hold such power over us, why we measure ourselves by standards we never chose, and most of all, why we cling so desperately to control in a world that is, by its nature, unpredictable. For him, wisdom wasn't about being flawless or admired. It was about learning how to live comfortably inside your own skin, and that begins with letting go of the need to constantly prove yourself. His reflections weren't lofty abstractions. They were practical maps for navigating a messy, uncertain world with more ease and less fear. And as we move deeper into his philosophy, you'll see why his words feel like they were written not in the 1500s, but for you, right now. Caring, in itself, isn't the problem. We care because we want to belong. We want to matter. But there's a tipping point when caring shifts from genuine connection to an exhausting performance. Montaigne understood that most of us live right on that edge, and often cross it without even noticing. Think about your own life. How many times have you dressed for an event not for comfort or self-expression, but because you were picturing what others might say? How many posts have you deleted because they didn't get enough likes fast enough? How often have you replayed a conversation in your head, word for word, for hours, not to learn from it, but to worry about whether you said the wrong thing? When you care too much about perception, you stop living for yourself and start living for an audience. You hand over the steering wheel of your life to a crowd that is, most of the time, not even paying attention. Montaigne saw this in the politics of his day. Nobles twisting themselves into knots to please people whose approval was fleeting at best. Today, we see it in the endless pursuit of digital applause, the way we measure worth in hearts, shares, and comments. The trap is subtle. We tell ourselves we're just being conscientious, that we're working hard, that we're staying on top of things. But underneath, it's often fear. Fear of rejection, fear of being misunderstood, fear of standing out in the wrong way. And the cruel irony is that the harder you try to control how others see you, the less authentic you become, and the less satisfying the approval you do get will feel. Montaigne's invitation was radical. What if you stopped? What if you released that white-knuckle grip on how you're perceived? He wasn't talking about neglecting responsibilities or ignoring the people you love. He was talking about cutting the rope that ties your self-worth to other people's fleeting opinions. Because the moment you do, you create space for something more important to emerge, the freedom to live, speak, and choose in alignment with what actually matters to you. When Montaigne said we should stop caring so much, he wasn't telling us to shut down, to turn cold, or to become indifferent. That's the mistake many people make when they first hear the idea. Not caring isn't about giving up. It's about choosing what's worth your care. It's the difference between ignoring everything and letting go of the things that drain you for no reason. You can stop caring about gossip while still caring deeply about your family. You can stop caring about the perfect Instagram photo while still caring about capturing real, meaningful memories. For Montaigne, this selective caring rested on three simple but life-changing principles. First, self-acceptance over perfection. When you stop obsessing over being flawless, you make space to actually live. Your quirks, your so-called flaws, become part of your signature. Second, presence over overplanning. Life is unpredictable. You can either waste your days bracing for impact or step into each moment as it arrives, messy and unpolished. And third, authenticity over approval. Every time you filter yourself to fit someone else's script, you trade a little piece of your truth for their comfort. Montaigne's challenge was simple: stop making that trade. Not caring, in this sense, is an act of focus. It's deciding which voices in your life are worth turning up and which ones you can quietly dial down to silence. It's protecting your energy from the noise so that what's left is spent on what genuinely matters. And here's where it gets interesting. Once you stop scrambling for approval, you don't lose connection with people, you often gain it. Because what people are really drawn to is authenticity, and that only shows up when you stop performing for the crowd. Here's the part that sounds almost too simple to be true. The less you try to force life, the more it starts to work in your favor. Montaigne saw it centuries ago, and now psychology confirms it. When you stop gripping so tightly, things don't fall apart, they fall into place. Think about the times you chase someone's attention only to feel them pull away. Then, when you stopped chasing, they suddenly came closer. Or the moments you obsessed over solving a problem, turning it over in your head until you were exhausted. And then the second you took a break, the answer appeared as if it had been waiting for you all along. This is the paradox of letting go. The harder you push for control, the more resistance you create. The moment you step back, the tension drops, and life has room to move. Montaigne believed that much of our suffering comes from this resistance, the endless attempts to bend reality to match our expectations. It's not about becoming passive or surrendering to fate. It's about knowing when your effort is turning into strain, when your energy is no longer creating progress, but friction. In those moments, stepping back isn't weakness, it's strategy. And here's the fascinating twist. When you let go of the need to prove yourself, you actually become more magnetic. People notice when someone is at ease in their own skin. They lean in. They trust you more. They redrawn to the calm confidence that comes from not needing to constantly manage how you re-perceived. Letting go doesn't mean losing control. It means trading control over outcomes you can guarantee for mastery over the only thing you ever truly own: your own presence, your own choices, your own peace of mind. Think about the most confident, magnetic people you've met. Are they the ones explaining themselves endlessly, scanning the room for signs of approval, adjusting every move to please the crowd? Or are they the ones who seem centered, unbothered, almost immune to the noise? Montaigne understood the reason. The moment you stop needing constant approval, you free yourself. Not because you don't care about people, but because your self-worth is no longer for sale. You decide what you value. You decide when you've done enough. The truth is, the world will never fully understand you, and that's not a problem to be solved. You could explain your choices for hours and still be misinterpreted. You could polish every word you say and still be criticized. The only approval that holds real weight is your own. But here's the surprising part. The less you chase validation, the more of it you tend to receive. People trust those who aren't desperate to please them. They respect the ones who can stand their ground without aggression, who can say, "This is who I am," and mean it. Want to test it? Try an approval detox. For 1 week, resist the urge to fish for praise or check for likes. Don't drop hints for reassurance. Don't explain your decisions unless it's necessary. Notice how much lighter you feel and how often, without asking, people still give you the respect you used to try so hard to earn. Because when you no longer need the world to clap for you, you start to live for something far more powerful, your own sense of alignment. And that's the kind of freedom Montaigne was talking about, the kind that makes you untouchable in all the best ways. Montaigne knew that our need for control doesn't just affect us. It shapes our relationships, often in ways we don't notice. We think we're protecting what we care about, but in reality, we may be suffocating it. Look at the dynamics in your own life. How many arguments start because someone didn't meet your expectations? How many moments of tension come from trying to make people act, think, or feel the way you believe they should? We convince ourselves it's love, that it's guidance or care, but often it's fear in disguise. Fear of being hurt, fear of being left behind, fear of being unseen. Montaigne believed true connection isn't built on control, it's built on acceptance. When you stop trying to script someone's behavior, you give them the space to be themselves. And that space is where trust grows. It's where love stops being conditional. Ironically, detachment doesn't push people away, it draws them closer. Why? Because it removes the pressure. People feel safer around someone who doesn't demand constant reassurance, who isn't trying to mold them into a perfect image. That's when relationships shift from fragile performances to genuine bonds. Think of the people you're drawn to. Are they desperate for your attention, or do they stand steady on their own? Montaigne's lesson is clear. The more comfortable you are with letting others simply be, the more they'll want to stay. And it works both ways. The moment you stop measuring your worth by how others treat you, you stop being a hostage to their moods and choices. That's the real power in detachment. It protects your peace while deepening the connections that matter most. If letting go feels so freeing, why is it so hard? Montaigne would say the answer is simple: fear. Fear of the unknown. Fear of losing control. Fear of what might happen if we stop micromanaging every little detail of our lives. From the moment we're old enough to be judged, we're taught that control equals safety. That if we try hard enough, plan carefully enough, and care deeply enough, we can protect ourselves from pain. But the truth? No amount of control can erase uncertainty. No amount of worrying can prevent the unexpected. We've been conditioned to believe that loosening our grip is the same as giving up, when in reality, it's often the first step toward living fully. Montaigne didn't see letting go as weakness. He saw it as wisdom, a recognition that life is not a chessboard where every move can be calculated in advance, but a river that flows whether we fight it or not. The fear is understandable. Letting go means surrendering the illusion that we can control how people feel, what they think, or what will happen tomorrow. But clinging to that illusion comes at a cost: our peace, our presence, our ability to enjoy life as it is right now. And here's the paradox. The moment you finally release that grip, you realize you were never in control in the first place. What you do gain, however, is something far more valuable: the ability to respond with clarity and calm to whatever life throws your way. That's real strength. That's the freedom Montaigne was pointing toward. Philosophy isn't meant to stay on the page, and Montaigne knew that. His ideas are most powerful when you turn them into habits. So how do you actually live this way in the modern world? First, daily reflection. Montaigne spent hours examining his own thoughts, and you can do the same in minutes. Each day, ask yourself, what's actually worth my energy today? What can I let go of? Write it down. You'll be surprised how much you can release when you name it. Second, acceptance drills. Once a day, let something be imperfect on purpose. Wear the shirt with a tiny wrinkle. Send the email without over-editing. Let the conversation breathe without filling every silence. It's a small but powerful reminder that the world doesn't end when things aren't flawless. Third, selective attention. Treat your attention like currency, because it is. Every time you spend it on gossip, pointless comparisons, or worries you can't control, you're broke by the end of the day. Instead, direct it toward what actually builds your life: your craft, your health, your relationships, your inner peace. None of these steps require a grand life overhaul. They're about shifting the small, everyday choices that quietly shape your reality. Over time, this becomes your default way of living: present, grounded, and untied from the weight of other people's expectations. And once you start living this way, you realize something Montaigne understood all along: the world doesn't just feel lighter. You feel stronger. This is where Montaigne's philosophy comes full circle. The paradox of life is that the things we clutch at the tightest often slip away, while the things we release have a way of returning in even greater form. When you stop caring about being perfect, you become more approachable. When you stop chasing validation, you attract genuine respect. When you stop trying to control every outcome, you open the door for possibilities you couldn't have planned. Montaigne's wisdom was simple but powerful. Life isn't meant to be conquered. It's meant to be danced with. The rhythm changes. The steps aren't always clear, but when you stop forcing them, you find your flow. The ultimate realization is this: you don't need to control everything to be happy. You don't need the world to applaud you to feel worthy. And you don't need to know exactly where life is going in order to trust the path. Because once you stop caring about the wrong things, the right things have a way of finding you. So now the question isn't whether Montaigne's philosophy works. It's whether you're willing to live it. Not someday, not after the next milestone, but starting right now. Ask yourself, what's one thing you can let go of today? One expectation, one fear, one habit of overthinking that's been quietly weighing you down. Imagine setting it aside and noticing how light you feel without it. This isn't about abandoning ambition or disconnecting from the people you love. It's about reclaiming your energy, your presence, and your ability to live a life that's yours, not a performance for someone else's approval. Montaigne saw it centuries ago, and the truth hasn't changed. The moment you stop caring about the wrong things, you make room for the right ones to find you. And when they do, you'll see that you never needed to control it all. You just needed to let it flow.